in child protective services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Yeah. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection, okay? And that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This is someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. True. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Fight CPS with Sabrina. I'm your host for today. We have Jasmine as our guest, and you have a story to share with us. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say. The stories that I've been hearing lately, I'm just so saddened, and, you know, like, I want something to be done about it, and it feels like the only thing that can be done is getting a bunch of people together to vote and blah, blah, blah. But honestly, I don't even think that our votes really matter. I think they do what they want to do anyways. And we need to figure out something that we can do right now to get the attention of whoever it is we need to get the attention of, to do something about this, because this is just beyond crazy. And sorry, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you've been going through.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for having me and allowing this opportunity to share my story. Gosh, I have been dealing with the Arizona Department of Child Safety since 2016. So a little bit of backstory, me and my partner, we were trying to have kids for some time. And after about 2 years, I got pregnant, and then I had a miscarriage. That caused me to go in, some depression like most women, based on my knowledge. I'd never gone through such a thing like that. So that was pretty traumatic for me. And during that healing process, well, I found out I was pregnant again. So at about 7 weeks, I started getting really sick. And I have an older child. She's 12 now. So, I know what being pregnant was like, but something just wasn't right. And we go into the hospital and we find out that I'm pregnant with twins. So I'm like, whoa, okay. So this is why I've been so sick. So for about 8 weeks to about 30 weeks, I was on bed rest. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I could not breathe. I could not function. I could not work because I was so sick from my pregnancy. And during that time, I had a few friends that recommended, why don't you get a medical card that'll help with your nausea? So I expressed with my OBGYN. I let her know everything that I was going through. We tried different type of medications. Nothing was working. And she was fully aware that I was using medical marijuana to treat my symptoms. Never was there a discussion about there being a concern. As I remind you, I have an older child who I was recreational with, and it was the same OBGYN, and she never made any type of issue about it at that time. Here I am 7 years later, still not an issue to my knowledge. So I go in at 33 weeks to deliver my twins. Everything, was pretty normal. They were expected to be early. And I had I would say, someone in the NICU that, was asking all the follow up questions. And I was completely honest about my use of medical marijuana. I had no problem. I wasn't ashamed about it because I thought that was something that, you know, my doctor had already been fully aware of. So I get ready to, prep to start preparing for my twins to come home because they were in the NICU. They needed to get a little bit stronger. They were eating fine, they were breathing fine on their own. So it was just more so getting a little bit bigger, gaining some more weight before they went home. So the lady at the hospital explains to me that a caseworker will come down, and just ask me some questions. So I had no idea. I was totally fine with that. I'm like, okay, no big deal. So first, I am accused of running away from the investigator because at this time I'm already discharged from the hospital. My twins are going to be there for another week or so. And my older child, who is in school, well, me and my partner had to go pick them up. So we leave. Apparently, the case manager shows up and says that I'm dodging her. So I get there the next day and I'm like, no, I'm happy to speak with you. So we go into the room and, we start discussing, this different sense programs. And at that time, I was literally in between moving. Like I had the pregnancy early, but I was in between moving houses. So we were literally still in our old place, moving to our new place. She's like, and I'm staying at another place during this time. So, our life is already pretty hectic
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
that's a lot.
And then we have DCS coming into the picture. So that makes it even worse. And, I'm naive to the situation. I'm naive to the system. I have no idea. I'm just thinking that these are people that are here to help me and provide me with resources that's going to assist me with, whatever I need to make sure that my family is just strong. So we go a
And
couple
that's
weeks.
how they should be.
That's how it should be, and that's how it's
Yeah.
presented, but that's not how it is. It's all
Not even
smoke and
close.
mirrors in the beginning. So the lady comes out and, she comes and checks the home. Mind you, we're just moving in, so everything boxes everywhere. Like, what is a newborn baby really going to do with boxes everywhere? I think we've got it covered. So she tells us that we can't take the babies home until I have a safety monitor. So at this point, I'm pinned with a safety monitor 24 hours a day. My grandmother and my cousin are taking shifts. My grandmother comes in the morning time when she goes to work and stays until she gets off work at 5:30. When she gets off at 5:30, my grandmother goes home and, my cousin stays there with me. This went on for about 6 weeks. I was doing UAs, passing UAs, had no problem passing a clean UA. And they wanted me to do tarot. So I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? Then Taros wants me there like 3 times a week, 6 hours a day, and I'm like, I have to work, but I'll try.
They make
So
it impossible to be able to have any kind of a job.
any kind of a job or even to be willing to be able to work with them. So I'm telling these service providers and the agencies that they have me contracted with, hey, I'm happy to do stuff with you, but this is my work schedule. If I don't get home until 7:30 at night, Monday through Friday, you're going to have to come later or you're going to have to come on the weekends. Nobody wanted to come later or on the weekends. So after about 5 months, I couldn't continue with Taros because Taros didn't have a class for me to go to on the weekends, and there was no point in keeping my referral open. So they closed out everything as unsuccessful. Well, that wasn't my fault. You understand? So none of
Yeah.
this was my fault. I was happy to oblige, but nobody was able to work with me. So that was in 2016. They closed the DCS case. I had my twins. I moved on. Well, I noticed that the trauma from that kind of stayed with me. So after about 6 months postpartum, I fell into a deep depression. I am susceptible to the postpartum trait and the depression, so it has to be monitored very well. And if it's not, things could get kind of hectic with my emotional
Absolutely.
stability. And I think that's with most women. And I think that's a
Yeah.
biological thing. I don't believe that it's pinpoint to a specific person. So, here I am falling into my depression, plus, the natural order of life. We're having financial issues, we're having housing issues, we're having marital issues, we're having just issues, we're just having issues in life. And I just needed a break. I needed to breathe. Well, then guess what? By the time we finally get our head above water, we're not homeless anymore. We've got stable housing. Now I'm pregnant again. And my twins aren't even a year old at this point, and I'm still dealing with postpartum, and I'm still dealing with, the crazy things that life has going on with you on a regular
Yeah.
basis. I just got laid off from my job, just so much was going on at this time. So here I am pregnant again. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the perfect pregnant person. I'm like Bridezilla. I can just look. I want
I'm
it
not
my way, and
either.
this is how it's going to be. So, my partner is like military, very just like, no, I'm not having it, but we work well together. And during this time, high stress, neither one of us were working. And there was an incident where I wanted the AC on, and I told him if he didn't turn the AC on, I was going to call the police. Well, long story short, I end up punching a hole in the wall. The police get called. We know in Arizona here, I'm not sure where you're located, Sabrina, but here
I'm
in
in
Arizona,
California.
okay. So here in Arizona, domestic violence rule is whoever has caused a proof of domestic violence goes to jail. Like hands down, that we don't play about domestic violence here. If I'm not mistaken, Metropolitan Phoenix is one of the top rated locations for domestic violence, and especially during the pandemic. So they don't play. And I knew I punched a hole in the wall.
In California, they always have to take someone, no matter
Yeah.
what. And I cannot tell you how many times it's always the woman. And even like one of my friends, she's the nicest girl you've ever met. Like, I mean, she would literally give a stranger her credit card and an apartment if she could. And she called me crying, and she was all bruised up, bloody lip. And she calls me, and I like call the police. Like, I don't know what to do. I'll meet you there. So she does, and the cops obviously split them up, talk to both of them, come back and arrest her and say that she hit him first, and he has a mark on his back. And they took her to jail, and it was a holiday weekend, and she
So
was
she
so,
was in there all weekend.
yep. And so that's when I found out, like, they always have to take somebody to resolve an actual like fight to continue or to happen.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I learned that the hard way, I guess I shall say. I created allegations that at the time when we had initially were working with the twins, he was not involved at all with the program, and I was upset. So here we are going around again, knowing that I'm likely going to have another open case because I'm still smoking weed with my daughter. I have no problem doing the services. It's not a big deal to me. I'm happy to, oblige. If my OBGYN doesn't have a problem with it, then I don't see what the big deal is. So, here we are. Naturally, the situation escalates, and a couple days later, we have a DCS caseworker leaving notes on our door. So, I've already trained my daughter. You do not speak to anyone unless your mother or your attorney is present. Do you understand that? And she's like 7 years old at this
Can I
point.
just
So,
pause you right there? Everybody who is watching this right now, please listen to what Jasmine is saying. Teach your kids what to say and do, because good chances you're already dealing with it, but it's important because they are very good at manipulating. They're very good at what they do, and they know how to put words in their mouths. And so it's really important to teach our kids how to be prepared for that. So sorry, I just wanted to
definitely. No, no,
point
thank
that
you.
out.
You're absolutely correct. It's something that we had to, kind of engrave in her after the first, incident had started. And lucky enough, sure enough, I would say the day after I told her, DCS shows up. to the school and attempts to interview her. Now, mind you, based on their statutes and their department policies, they do not interview a child unless it is a case of abuse. Well, this wasn't a case of, of abuse. This was a case of neglect. And naturally, when I call it out, they're like, "Oh no, well, if we're concerned, we can just go and talk to them at any time." No, you can't, and you won't be talking to my child any further. So that was I was about 4 months into the pregnancy at that point. So, here we are as the time fades, I'm thinking the case is closed, I'm telling them, oh, I separated from him, we're dealing with our own stuff. When, in all actuality, I just needed a break and needed to like freak out because I'm pregnant again. I've got these kids that are here. I don't have the social and community support like I need. I don't have the therapeutic support that I need, the validation, reminding me that what I'm going through, it's not unnatural. Like I just felt alien to everything that was going on. So here we are. I'm getting ready to deliver my fourth child, third child with him, but my fourth child, my daughter, and I have her at the hospital. Everything's normal. We're ready to leave in less than 24 hours. The doctor's like, hey, let's just have the pediatrician come in tomorrow and we can discharge you. Well, then the next day, DCS comes in. And I'm thinking it's about the weed. I'm like, look, I have no problem. I was open about it. Let's do these services. Great. She's like, no, it's about domestic violence. What? So naturally, as I'm expressing my frustration throughout the time period and the finances and everything that's going on, oh, well, that sounds like domestic violence to me. That sounds like financial abuse. That sounds like spousal abuse. And it started like
Don't
making
ever tell them anything.
I had and the first time that we engaged with them with my twins and they came to the house and did the home study and they left, my husband sits me down and he looks at me and he's like, you have no idea what you have just what Pandora's box you've just opened. You have no idea. And I'm thinking, I'm just being naive. Like, I don't have a problem with, doing whatever it is that they're providing. I can always learn stuff. I'm in college at this time. I'm like a sophomore in college. So, I'm open to learning. Yeah, why not? He's like, you don't understand. They want our children. And I'm like, no, just whatever. So fast forward back to when I have my daughter, they come to the hospital, they want him out of the home, they want a safety monitor to come to my home 24/7. They want us to have a cooling down period. So for 7 whole days, we had to go separate it from each other and before we can have a TDM. We
Are
come
you
to this.
kidding me? Like you just had a baby and they're telling you he can't be there like when you need him the most? Like that is so unfair.
And if anyone's out there listening and if anybody's married, we all know that our husband is our oldest child and they are the biggest headache. So we we have to come to those terms. But at the end of the day, that adult child, we need them. They're the strongest pinpoint in the whole process. They're the foundation. And it was mind-boggling to me because here we go again. Here we go again. Last time I couldn't even take my twins home from the hospital because they had to stay in the NICU. This time around, I can't go home by myself. I have to have a babysitter to watch me. And now you're telling me he has to leave the home and we can't see each other for 7 days until we have this TDM. So we have this freaking TDM, right? This team decision meeting. And it's just me and him. And, it's case manager, a facilitator, another case manager. So we have this discussion and I'm stressed out. Naturally, I'm stressed out. Naturally, we've all been stressed out. As I mentioned, he's a veteran. So, our household dynamic is much different already from your average household, from your African American household. Like we're automatically a special, class. And, things are just a little bit more stressful and I'm expressing that. I'm expressing my frustration. I'm like, I got these 3 babies that are all under 2. They're driving me crazy. And so she's like, why don't you, why don't we get some services to help, some stability with your family, and we'll do, what did she call it? It was an in-home intervention, I believe it was. And she was all like, it's basically where we have court intervention where the department is held responsible for all the services that they're supposed to provide you, and you're held responsible making sure that, you've completed all the services. So simple, right? That just sounds really
I
simple,
love
right?
how they word it. Not at
So
all.
we're sitting there, me and my husband, and we're like, oh, that sounds great. Some liability, the court's going to actually have accountability. Sure, let's go. Sure, why not? Mind you, we have this whole meeting recorded. The entire meeting is recorded. So we have this meeting. Everybody's all like, okay, everything's fine. Everything goes back to normal. We have a pop in safety monitor, which is my grandmother. She's supposed to call in and check on us, make sure everything's okay. The family doesn't need anything. We all go home. We're like, okay, finally things are normal. He's got this job, he's got his benefits, everything's just finally things could be okay. It's Thanksgiving, we can have a normal life. About a week later, case manager comes to the house, said that she needed us to sign the paper for the services. So, not thinking anything of it. He's dyslexic. I'm postpartum. Nobody should be signing anything without an attorney right now.
Yeah.
He signed it. She pulls up, or I pull up when she's leaving. She's like, hey, can you sign this? And I'm like, sure. Sign it, goes about her way. Nothing. About 2 weeks later, I get a phone call that Friday saying that we have court on Monday. Court. I mean, okay, I knew it was like court oversight. I get that, but I didn't know it was going to be like something that serious. We get to court and we find out that we signed our rights over to the state and had no idea that we had did that. No clue whatsoever, because our interpretation was that we were agreeing to services, but in order to agree to services, you have to sign this little paper that says, I have given the Department of Child Safety permission to allow my children to be wards of the state. Because they couldn't petition us, because there
So
was nothing really to petition us about.
when she showed up originally with that paperwork, I know like it was a very very stressful time. But were one of you able to actually like look and see some of what she was saying was on the paper, or just signed it because she said?
So I wasn't there when
For
he
case-
signed it. We were separate, so naturally it's easier to conquer when they're divided. So
That's why they do that.
yeah. So she had got his signature before I got home. I literally was pulling in the driveway when she was pulling out, and she's like, "Hey," and I seen his signature, and I'm like, "Oh, sure, why not? Okay, he's cool with it," and not thinking. And we get to court, and he flips out. I'm in just complete shock, like still confused, like I don't know what's going on, like
Yeah.
what are you talking about? So then
And they do that on purpose so
oh
that way
yeah,
you reacted badly in court and then you look like bad parents.
it took me 2 years to figure out the algorithm, but yeah,
Yeah.
you're
And if
absolutely
you're
correct.
a normal mother and you show any kind of emotion, you're automatically the bad one and a psychopath, and you're the bad mother who lost her kid. And it's normal. Like if you weren't crying, I would be worried.
Yeah.
You know.
So at that point at court, they told him he couldn't be at the house anymore, no more whatsoever. He's done flipped out and gone off the deep end. He gets checked into a psych ward. I'm stuck at home with a brand new baby, two 18-month-olds, and a crazy psycho prepubescent 9-year-old. So, oh yeah, my house is catching on fire right now. And I felt at that time, based on my postpartum, that that was probably the most dangerous thing that the department could have done by removing him out of the home, because he created stability with my instability. But because of his reactions, they used that and they created the narrative around him from that point on. And that was December of 2000 and I want to say 18. So, we go through the 15 months. I complete all my services. I go through my first 90 days where I'm like in complete shock. Like I ended up, so the kids were still in my physical custody at that point. We get to February and, like I said, we're having problems and I just lose it and I just can't take it. Just so happened my uncle, who lives right down the street from me, he had stopped by just to check on me because he hadn't heard from me in a few days. And I was just livid. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I need help. I need you to take the kids. He offered to take the kids. My spouse and his mistress at the time were creating hectic drama. Police were called. When the police got there, they're like, look, you have two options. You can continue acting crazy and go to jail, and that's not going to help your DCS case, or you can go and get some mental help. And I truly needed it. So I took what was needed best for my sanity, for my kids. I went, I spent like 8 days in a behavioral health center. It was, definitely enlightening at the time. And when I in there, we have a TDM. We discuss everything that happens, everything that was going on. There was no restrictions. There was restrictions, but not restrictions how the department should have if it was that important. So we had the present danger plan, which at that point in time had expired after we had the first TDM. We go to court, they put in a second present danger plan that expired December 31st. In January, there was an incident where the police were called. Neither one of us were in the room with each other. He was in a whole nother side of the town when the police got there. But the police couldn't do anything because DCS had never gave me any type of additional document saying that he couldn't be there. And he wanted me removed from the home. But thankfully, he had like a vehicle warrant, so they took him on that. So as everything, came out in the TDM, they decided, let mom get what she needed. Everybody needed to do services, and we needed to do them separately. Okay, that's fine. So I get out. I go through my 90 days of the trauma and the shock. The idea of not having your kids, and I went like a whole month before I even got to see my kids, and I'm breastfeeding at the time. My daughter was 4 months old when she was first taken, when they were all gone. They were all gone. They were all split up. My oldest daughter didn't see her siblings
That's what I
anymore.
was just going to ask you. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So
So
they
my
split
oldest
them all
daughter,
up.
my oldest
And
daughter was with her father's mother, and then my younger three were split up um, into three different homes at that moment when we were having the TDM. So once
were
they let
any
me
of
out,
those three relatives or family members?
where they were, no,
Yeah, the three that were split up. They were
nope,
all foster strangers.
yeah, yeah. Except for my oldest daughter. My
Yeah,
oldest daughter went with her grandmother, but the
yeah,
youngest three,
I
yeah,
got that.
they were all just with foster. So they actually had them designated in the system. My daughter's never been in the system with foster care. They are
Mhm.
designated in the system. And the crazy thing about it, when I left to go to the hospital, they were with my uncle. 48 hours later, they went to my uncle's house, did a welfare check, said they were doing a welfare check. They get there and they tell them to pack their things and that they were leaving. So they removed them for no reason, when at that time they could have pulled out their little tablet, did the DCS check in the registry to make sure that they were safe, and continued on forward. But
Right,
instead, they took
because
them.
for them to take them means that they're in a dangerous situation, or they're at harm's way, or however the crap hell they word it.
Yeah, yeah,
But obviously it was a safe place, you know, and a great idea because you needed the help. And since when is that illegal? And to just
exactly.
take the kids from him like that, that's.
Exactly.
Can we actually back up for a second?
Of course.
So they're trying to split you guys for domestic violence, but um, it was just that one situation.
Yeah.
And what when they said that he couldn't be in the house with you, what were they telling you the reason why?
Because of his behavior and his response
Because
to
of
having to
of
deal with
course,
DCS.
yeah,
Yes, of course,
right.
naturally,
Well, I'm
naturally.
sure they used the whole like veteran card and PTSD and yeah, that whole show.
Yes,
You
exactly.
know,
So, naturally they became out of care at that point, which, I was fine with. I knew I needed it, and I needed to break the codependency. I needed to have that ability to remember who I was again and take care of myself again before I could take care of a whole household. So here we go. We go on this roundabout for 15 months. Everything's, up and down, up and down. I get my housing. I, complete all of my classes. I complete the psych evaluation. The psych evaluation did not recommend that I do substance treatment. It recommended that I do some form of educational course. Well, I'm a college student and I work at a college as well. So why not kill two birds with one stone, get those college credits and that knowledge that you're asking me to get? I complete those in January of 2020. We go to a report and review hearing. They're like, no, we don't feel that that was substantial enough. We want her to go do another referral and complete that referral and see if she's going to need maybe lesser type of services. Well, here's the trick that they do on these referrals. On the referrals, they put recommendations for what they want to have happen anyways. So then once you go in there, they already have determined what type of services they're going to give you before they even complete their assessment, which creates the bias assessment already. So what I did instead was I contacted the same provider. I just contacted them on my own. I gave them all the same information, probably more information. Honestly, after the assessment, I thought I gave her too much information. She was like, "You're fine." She was like, "I don't recommend any services." I take it back to the department. They contact them and they're like, "Well, are you sure? Because there was this one time back in 2018 when she had did substances. We're in 2020. What does that have to do with anything?"
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next. I'm not really sure the laws in Arizona, but obviously in California, it's legal. Like medical marijuana, you don't even need a medical card. It's just completely legal. Is it the same in Arizona?
No. So the Department of Health Services has a statute in the dispensaries that states if you come in and you are pregnant, that you are subject to be disclosed to the Department of Child Safety. It says that
Wow.
on our packaging strips.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've been working with representatives in legislation trying to get that part removed. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the case that just happened a couple of months ago. I want to say a few weeks ago. It's that recent. That a case manager, she was actually a DCS case manager that worked here, got pregnant, was a medical patient, had her baby, and they tried to take her baby from her. No, they didn't try. They took her baby from her.
Oh no.
She fought for it and she filed an appeal, and the appeal stated that, it's her medical right. If she has a medical card, the department cannot interfere with her taking care of her child unless the doctor reports concerns about abuse or misuse of the substance that they have prescribed for them. Otherwise, you leave them alone. So it's really touch and go. I have people who I have been in contact with who have used marijuana, but they were never contacted by the department. So it's really touch and go, and it's a real heavy layer of bias. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but here in Arizona, 1 in every 2 kids that's African American is going to be investigated by a child welfare system by the age of 18. And that's 1 in 3 for everybody else. So we're still looking at 60-40 margin. Almost all of our children will be investigated by the
The other
Department of Child
day,
Safety.
like 2 days ago, I heard in Arizona it's 38-1, 38 African American to 1 white that will be investigated.
And here's the crazy thing. So, everything's crazy. I complete everything that I need to complete. And dad's still mad. Dad's not getting visits. Dad's causing chaos. Dad's, and the department's making him just look like just psychopath. Well, at this point, we hadn't spent 9 months together. We hadn't had any contact with each other. So now we're trying to work together as a team because we're getting tired of this. Let's just get our kids back. They put in an order where they did not want him to have contact. They didn't want him to have contact because he kept being a jerk to everyone. One of our report and review hearings, the judge specifically said, if you continue to harass the case managers and be jerks to them, I'm going to suspend your visits. But you do have a right to have your visits, whether you're doing your services or not. Here we are, 3 months later. He's still being a jerk. They suspend his visits based off of that. That has nothing to do with me. We're at a stage now where we're ready to transfer custody back into my care. June 12th, the department files a motion to transfer custody back into my care. June 15th, Dad goes and posts a video on YouTube taunting the department, telling the department where they can shove it, telling the department that it is his constitutional right and they will not stop him from being with his children. June 18th, the department files their motion to withdraw and files a motion to change the case plan to severance and adoption and files a motion to sever and adopt. So
I was just watching Fight CPS with Miss Georgette, and Darren, one of the co-hosts that she has, was just saying that that he has a podcast and was talking about his situation, and then all of a sudden they came at him with restraining orders and told him that he couldn't have a no contact with his daughter, and like the whole works. They do not like to be put on blast. They definitely don't.
Well, needless to say, it wasn't just the department. It was all the attorneys. It was all the judges.
Oh,
It
they're
was
all in
my
on it together.
attorney. They were
They're
all in on it.
all
I
on the
told
same
my
page.
attorney to file a motion for change in custody because at this point, the department was concerned about me completing services. I had completed everything. I was done. I was already in reunification. If the department now, all of a sudden, the department wants me to do a second psych eval. Now all of a sudden I'm crazy. Now all of a sudden I'm bipolar. I haven't been bipolar for the last 2 years. My therapist ain't caught that I was bipolar, but now all of a sudden I'm bipolar, and it would be
They're pulling
dangerous.
strings here
Oh
because they're getting
yes.
desperate. Yep.
And the crazy thing about it is my lawyer let them. But she
Yeah.
was a part of it too,
Yes.
and I
They
didn't know
all
until
are.
later, but they are definitely all a part of it too. I
Yes.
asked her to file a motion, a Rule 59, months before the severance trial. My severance trial was in January. She had my case in September. She could have filed a motion, a Rule 59, and she never did it until
Mhm.
the last minute where the Rule 59 aligned with the severance trial. So the decision on the Rule 59 would have been based on the severance trial. Are you kidding me? And at this time, I'm pregnant again. So here I am. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop smoking weed. That's not a problem, but it takes some time to get it out of
But
my
is it a
system.
problem? Like, are they telling you that you cannot smoke weed when you're pregnant, or like, what is the technical law on that?
It's still
Because when
messy,
I
just
was
like our
pregnant,
abortion law out
my
here.
doctor, like, this was when weed first started becoming legal and you had to have a card. And my actual doctor told me to go get one because I was so sick. And like, it is something that they like tell you to do when you're pregnant because it like helps so much
It
with
does
being able
help
to
so
eat.
much with,
And
yeah,
yes,
and just being
better
able to be
than taking,
comfortable being pregnant.
yes, and better
Yeah.
than taking any kind of, medications or something that can harm the baby. It's like proven that it does actually really good with unborn babies.
Yeah.
It helps with their development, and it helps like with all kinds of crazy stuff you would never think.
Yeah.
So I don't see why they're like, I don't know, is
It's
it
another it's another it's just another tactic. It's an easier tactic. It's a stronger tactic. Like I said, with the marijuana, it stays in your system so much longer. It can stay if you're a regular heavy smoker, if you have high fatty cell deposits that the THC can linger in. It took me from October. It took me from October to March to finally become testing completely negative. My THC numbers were going down, but because I had so much fat and I'm gaining weight too, it's not depleting from my body as easily. So, here I am. I'm going through the trial. I'm pregnant because otherwise I would have done everything myself. I'm a pre-law student. I pretty much know how to file some paperwork and argue my case. What's the big deal? But the big deal was at this point I learned so much about pre-pregnancy and your baby in utero and all the stress and all the trauma, and I wanted to have a happy baby. Like I'd never been able to just enjoy my pregnancy.
yeah.
I was completely by myself. I was a pandemic baby, so I was by myself all the time, and I really wanted to enjoy that. So I gave the stress to who I thought I can trust, someone, these attorneys. We go through 4 days of trial, spend an extra month in my final day of trial. I go into the hospital to have my son March the 15th or March the 16th. On March 14th, I hadn't known yet, but on March 14th, they filed a motion, a ruling, and they had terminated my parental rights. So this is March of 2012, or 2012,
On what ground?
2021. Time and care. Time and
Oh,
care. That's the famous one, time and care. That's it. That's all. It was time and care. So naturally with our statutes, it's not preponderance of evidence. I know that there has been a young lady around social media that has been expressing that it's the preponderance of evidence, which is the very low threshold, but it's actually not. It's clear and convincing evidence. And based on definition of corpus juris secundum, based on my knowledge, when you have clear and convincing evidence, it really doesn't matter what the other person has to say. If your evidence states what it states, then we move forward on
that's
that.
how it is in a normal court situation, but juvenile dependency court is very different. They go off of hearsay.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
yeah, and like I'm the most ridiculous things, and they don't even care at all. They'll just go with whatever and make it up because they can. And they don't need any proof or evidence, and even if you have it, they're not going to look at it.
They're not going to look at it. So
Nope.
what for? What for? What is the purpose? So mind you, I have my, my rights are terminated. I have my son. The next day they come in, DCS naturally comes in. They do an investigation. They come in at about 4:30 on a Wednesday. On Thursday, they get ready to come in to remove my son. They show me the court order where they have the judge sign off on it. That judge had signed off to remove my son before they came in the day before to even do their interview. They had been plotting to get my child since I had been pregnant because when the department found out I was pregnant, I had called a resource line through my job, through my employer. And I thought what I said was going to be safe, but unfortunately it wasn't. And so she contacted DCS, letting them know that I was pregnant and that I was using marijuana. So at that point, I chose to continue my pregnancy. I stopped smoking marijuana. So, like I said, they already had a order to remove my son before they came to interview me. So why would you come in to interview me and ask me any questions if you already had a decision of what you were going to do?
Yeah,
They
it's all
asked
BS.
It's all BS. They asked my uncle when they found out I was pregnant if they would be willing to take my child. My uncle didn't even know I was pregnant. My family didn't know I was pregnant. They only found out because the caseworker told my uncle and asked if they would be willing to take my child. This was 9 months prior to me even having the kid. So he's gone for 27 hours, 27 of the most grueling hours. I have a partner that I work with in the community, and two of them actually, and we were both in the TDM along with my mental health care providers. TDMs are usually 2 hours. This TDM lasted 3.5 hours. We had the facilitator say, I don't see in immediate danger right here. So I want to escalate this to a manager. The first level program manager wasn't available. So we finally got to the region manager. The region manager gets on the line. 3 minutes he needs. She tells him the facts. The allegations are X, Y, and Z. She's done A, B, and C. Where's your position? And he says, return her son to her. They return my son. About 2 weeks later, I had my final visit with my 3 younger children. That was March 30th. I have not seen my other 3 children since March 30th of 2021. They live 2.5 miles away from me. They're with family. My family is not allowed to provide me information on them. I don't get pictures of them. I still provide for them. I send money. I pay rent. I pay electricity bills. I pay phone bills. I pay for whatever my kids need, whatever they need, Halloween costumes, birthday presents, Christmas presents. That's all done by mommy.
I'm going to cut you off real quick because that video I was telling you about earlier on Miss Georgette's show, they said that technically they'll tell you that if your child's in the system that you can't have social media or pictures or whatever. But yes, you have the right to video and document and take pictures. That apparently is your right.
Allegedly, they've told my family that if they allow any contact with me, they'll take them from them and split them up.
Yes, and they do that. They will say that.
Yeah. So it's really been touch and go. And the most ironic thing I see, we're running on time, so I'll be brief. But the most ironic thing is for the past 8 months, I have been working with the department directly. I have been involved in TDMs. I have been involved in family meetings. I have been working hand in hand with the director, with the consultant to the director regarding cases, regarding programs to help families. But yet, I'm not good enough to take care of my other 3 children. So the department
That's
deemed me
not what it
fit.
is at all. What it
No,
is
it's
that
not.
they're getting a lot of money from you. With the kids, each kid is $43,000, and that's just for one. And then they have different programs and
And
different
don't forget if they're
funding.
special needs, they
Oh,
get even more money for them.
always,
Oh,
and
even
they
more
always,
money.
always find a way for the child to have special needs,
Oh
just so that way
yeah.
they can get that. Yes.
I had 3 psych evals. All of them took at least 5+ hours. These little
Yep.
brats go into a psych eval for 30 minutes, and now you know one has autism and the other one's DDD. Make it make sense. 30 minutes, and you were able to determine that information. So now the one that allegedly has DDD has been held back from in preschool and doesn't get to start kindergarten, which would
Um,
only make sense because they can't let him move to kindergarten, or else it would defeat his category of being DDD.
yeah. Um, I don't know if they do in Arizona, but in California, when you have a child that is in like special education, they have what's called an IEP meeting.
Yep.
Yes. So what I would recommend is to request an IEP meeting, even ask for what's it called? I'll think of it in a second. Ask for the IEP meeting and ask, to get together with all whoever teachers are around or whoever is giving the test or whatever. Everybody gets together and have them document exactly what their testing is showing and where they're at, because it can prove social services wrong, like over and over again. And you can get more answers that way too, because then you can request them to do testing that, maybe the social workers didn't do
Now,
right or
would I still so for this last year, I've been fighting to just allow my other children to have visits with their sibling. Do I even have that ability to step in and take charge? I know that I can file a motion to intervene, but I am dealing with the Supreme Court right now on my petition. So, um, and because my case is so political, I mean, I don't know if you had been shared some of the news reports, but we have some ABC News articles with me and my son regarding the situation. We have some with the director where both me and the director are on here, and the director's all like, "Oh, we're trying to help families," and I'm like, "Hey, here I am with this most vulnerable child, and they're still holding my other 3 children hostage."
so
So
you do
I
have
don't
the
know what
one
type of
child,
engagement.
right?
Yeah, I have 2 children. I have
Two.
two
So
children.
oh my gosh. So you can have two of them, but not the other two. Like, what's the difference? Like, you're just a bad parent to the two and not the other two. Like,
So it just sounds like if you
what is
ask
their
the department, their answer will be, "Oh, well, that's another case." That's
but
the
what
answer.
but what
It's
but
another
what,
case.
like, what is it that is not safe for those two that is safe for the other? Like,
And
that
it
doesn't
doesn't make
make
any sense.
any
He was
sense.
4 days old. You're going to give me a 4-day-old child. But allegedly, at the time, and they were younger, they were about 4, because they're 5 now, they were nonverbal. So that was their concern that they couldn't speak. Well, right now, I'm told that that's all they do is talk. So they seem to be talking just fine. So what is the concern? And based on my experience, my knowledge, my engagement with everyone, that's how they play it is that was a different case. And they will continue to shift blame instead of acknowledging what they've done wrong. And at this point, I've had it. I'm ready to burn the system down. I know my kids are still in it, but I will do everything to protect them. But I'm ready to burn the system down. You've got people, and they don't just do it to people of color. I've noticed that. I've been in
Everyone,
in TDMs. They do
everyone,
them bad, but they do it to everybody. Like
everyone, and
everybody.
not just in the States. Now it's like
No,
worldwide, and they
worldwide.
all get the same training, like the exact same training.
I just don't understand. I really just don't understand what the purpose is, what they feed off of, especially at this stage of the
The
game. I,
funding, it's the
I
money that they make off of it. It is insanity. It is the 97 Bill Clinton Act where he went ahead and said, okay, let's go ahead and give out extra money for taking kids away.
Oh, don't forget, the sitting president co-signed that act. So, we can also thank him for that too.
Yeah.
And I mean, at this point,
It
it's
doesn't make
getting.
any sense.
No, it really doesn't. And I've met with the associate commissioner of the Children's Bureau. I've met with her directly, and I've given solutions. Since it's all about money, Arizona makes their money off of terminations and then adoptions.
Yes.
So instead of putting people through the ringer of going back in and having to adopt their children, why don't you just create an incentive where the department makes money by reuniting families? That way everybody wins.
Exactly.
That'd be too much like right. That'd be too much like right. I'm giving
What
her
they do
these
here
solutions and
is
she tells
they'll
people to
like take your
Congress.
what they do here is they'll take your kid away, and then they'll like ask if one of your family members can take the kid, and then set them up as a foster parent even though they're like a grandparent, and then they get their bonus, and then they get them to adopt the kid, and then they get their bonus, and then they tell you just, oh, go ahead and work everything out. Oh, you stopped me from seeing my kid for 5 years, and now
They don't
that my
even know
mom adopted
me.
her, now I can have her back and nothing, everything's done. Oh yeah, we needed to get the adoption over with. Now it's up to you guys.
My uncle said that he was not going to adopt. The adoption agency came about 2 weeks after they gave me my son back. And my uncle said no. He was like, no, I see that this has been BS. He didn't really work directly with it. It was his wife that was handling like all the paperwork, all the ins and outs. He didn't really know what was going on. He just thought that I was being, young, dumb, chasing after a boy still, and it really wasn't about that. Of course, yeah, I've got this other baby, but it's not about that. I want all of my kids. All I've ever wanted to be was a mom. So I don't want just half of my children. And now, they can't spend birthdays together. They can't spend Christmases together. None of that. And I have this younger child, and they won't even, the family court has even stated that I can make final decisions on my oldest child. The father that she was with was a horrible parent, but yet and that's who the department left her in the care of. So at this point, it just has to be some type of resolution where we come together collectively and create some type of situation where this matter gets resolved.
Yeah. I would demand. Oops, looks like we lost you there. Let's give her a couple seconds here.
Sorry, I'm still here.
Okay. Can't see you, but I can hear you. I'm sorry, what were we just saying? Are you there? Oh, your mic is muted. Let's give her.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No worries. I forgot what we were just saying. You forgot to.
No, but yes, at the end of the day,
I would demand that they give you something in writing or something that explains why you can have your 2 kids and not the other 2 kids. And if so, what is it that needs to be done in order to get them back home? If it's because of some kind of safety issue or health issue or whatever it might be, you need to find out and do whatever it is, so that way there is no more excuses, and just keep doing that until they have nothing left.
That's true.
I mean, making any sense at all.
It's not making any sense. I've, addressed it with the director. I've addressed it with case managers, and now they've got the situation so locked up that we can't even get any information. I don't know if it's a new case manager. I don't know if it's the same case manager. There was a foster care review board hearing about 2 weeks ago. I knew that after my rights were terminated that I wouldn't be able to attend those anymore, but I knew that I would be able to at least attempt to make a statement. So when I logged in and I spoke with them, she asks me to identify myself in my relationship to the case. And, I tell her I know that I have no, jurisdiction in here to speak, but I would like to let the board know, and I told them what was going on. My children have a safe environment to grow up with and thrive with their siblings, and they're being denied that ability. And they kicked me out. It was a Zoom, but they kicked me out and they wouldn't allow me to speak, said that they couldn't take my information into consideration, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted them to know the truth and what was really going on, because now they are also a part of the BS. Now foster care review board, that this case that you're speaking on has a family, has a parent. These are parentless children. They have a parent who is continuing to parent and is still parenting. You've made your recommendation to the courts, but you're acquiescent to all this stuff that's going on because you've heard the truth. and you've continued to choose to make the recommendation for these children to stay in care. And that's all I wanted them to hear. Because now they can't deny that they didn't know that these children or that the situation happened as it was. So I'm just hoping and praying that my petition, my writ for cert to the United States Supreme Court gets granted at this point. I'm just speaking nothing but positive vibes. I expect for my children to come back into my home. I don't expect to do any type of backdoor agreement. They asked one of my partners that I work with in the community if my mother, who I have no relationship with, or my sister, who I have no relationship with, could adopt my children. And that way, for what? No, you're not going to have them adopted out to someone else and give them back. No, you're going to do this the right way. You are going to give me my children back. You are going to stand up, and you could blame it on the psych evaluator. That's what I've been saying. Just blame it on the psych evaluator. Say, oh, they made a misjudgment that made us make our decision the way that we did. That way, that keeps DCS out of the scapegoats. But at the end of the day, it's a political game. I've been running around with congressmen. I've been running around with senators. I've been running around with gubernatorial candidates, trying to get them to see what's really going on in our system. And, hopefully by the end of November, by the beginning of January, we have new leadership. We have new people that are running it. There's, someone that's running the department that's been working for the department since they were a case manager for over 25 years. That's ridiculous. This is a homegrown, grassrooted bias that's going in and out the department. And until we actually get those people that are causing issues with our families out of the system, it's just going to keep going. And the worst part about it is that it's everyone that it's involved, even the agencies. There's different programs that are not contracted with DCS that has their money in elections, has their money in congressmen and representatives, and it's ridiculous. Not when it comes to our kids. Okay, not when it comes to our kids, not when it comes to our families. You want to deal with that with, everything else that's going on in the world, but that's a fundamental right that they're messing with. And, I'm just hoping that at this point that the courts bless my writ and it gets exposed and we talk about this, because it's not just happening in Arizona, California. It's happening all over. Like you said, it's globally now at this point.
Yeah. So I lost my rights. My mom ended up adopting, but my mom is a horrible person. So after the adoption was finalized, like to the day where she stopped getting money, she told me to come pick her up, and my daughter was living with me consistently. They didn't care. CPS got called in fact and came over, did a check. They didn't care if they were good with it, even though I lost my parental rights. Well, long story short, my mom gets mad and takes my daughter and disappears. So I talked to an attorney, and apparently, even though you lost your rights, there's what I believe it's a 623 for a readoption hearing that you can go and show the courts that, like, whatever reason that they took the kids in the first place or whatever wasn't safe is safe now and it's fixed, and show them all the classes and everything that you can, present your case and say, give me a reason why I'm not good for them to be readopted here, because who else are they better with than with their own mother?
Do you guys have in California a state statute that allows for the not adoption, allows for the reinstatement of parental rights? Like, you guys have some type of, like, that's the problem, is that we don't have a legal grounds for a reinstatement.
Not that I know of. It's not a reinstatement. Like, once you lose your rights, that's it.
Yeah.
But it's I believe it's 623 readoption here. And that's what the attorney told me. He said, go and do it right away. And I said, okay, but I lost my rights. And he said, doesn't matter. Go right away and file it and tell them you need the paperwork to file for a readoption here. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Interesting.
In case that could work, because God, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense except for money why they're not giving you all of your kids back.
Yeah.
and only two of them. Like
Money,
it's
torture,
ridiculous.
trauma. They're feeding off of my trauma. The algorithm. They
Yes.
knew that I was coming back. They knew that I'm
Yep.
not going to be the parent that's going to be like, "Oh, my uncle's got them, so they're fine." No, they're my kids. I raised them. I pushed them out of my belly. Like, no, that's not happening. So, I think that a lot of it right now we're in the midst of a social and more of a spiritual warfare, and they're feeding off the agony of these parents. They're feeding off of the pain. I'm looking on social media and watching TikTok and I'm watching them record as they pull babies out of these mothers' arms in the hospital.
Yes.
I
I'm
watched the
watching
cop
it
snatch
too.
the baby from her in the car seat and the baby's just like swinging all over the place. And it's just like,
Yes.
this is what
The
it's
video I
come
watched
to.
yesterday, the lady just gave birth and was breastfeeding her daughter, and the social worker ripped the child off of her while she was feeding her baby. And she's like, "What? You're taking my baby? What? How are you going to feed my baby? How are you going to?" I mean, like,
That's
really?
exactly what happened when they came in for my youngest son. I was literally feeding him and they knock on the door and I'm like, "Who is it?" And they're like, announce themselves and I'm like, "What's going on?" And I'm like feeding my baby. Even the whole time I'm arguing with them and like yelling and recording everything, like I'm still feeding him. And finally when I had no other way to go, I was just like, "You know what?" Unlatched him and I just said, "Here." And that was the most awful, traumatizing experience that I've ever had to go through.
Yeah.
Ever. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I think that's just, it's like a death. I mean, I describe it as such. It's like a death. You don't know.
It's
Right now,
worse.
I don't know.
It's
It's
worse than a death
worse because at
because,
least I know they're not coming back after death. This is like
right.
a carrot dangling in my face.
Yeah.
I get pictures every now and again from my grandma, and sometimes I'm just like, why did you send me this? Like, for what? Like, I wish I could hold them. I wish I could talk to them. I wish I could FaceTime them. And
And what reason are they telling you that you can't even have visits?
because I'm no longer, even though I'm the biological mom, I'm no longer have any type of legal ties to them.
So are they still foster parents and they don't want to be
They're
adopted?
actually not foster parents, they're kinship. So they're not licensed, they're just family. And here in
Okay.
Arizona, they don't, I don't know if it's the same there, but here in Arizona, kinship does not get anything. They do not get any type of assistance, any resources
Oh, wow.
whatsoever. They get
Okay.
like $60 a month for each kid at best.
Horrible.
So they're not getting anything. They're not getting the foster care stipends, or any of that.
Because,
I'm the one providing, giving them everything that they need. I go to the food banks, I bring food over, I drop food off at the house. Like I said, I drop Christmas presents off, birthday presents. I do like as if they're still in my home. So
yeah. Um, and so, because I know, like, with my case, anyways, the second that the like adoption was finalized and that everything in court was done, they really didn't care about when I got to see my kid, if she could stay with me or live with me. They didn't care any of that. Even when even when we were still going through the whole court thing for years, they said that my mom could be the monitor for a visit, which she refused to do, of course, just to make my life even worse. But they haven't given that option at all. And also, what the heck is up with them not giving visits with the siblings at least?
I have no idea. Based on everything that I've seen and since I've taken myself out of the situation, looked at it from an outside perspective, it is genuinely just to destroy that bond, destroy that familial bond, destroy that connection that they have with the siblings, not necessarily because they're going to adopt them to some strangers, but just because the department admitted that they were doing things just because they wanted to stop my visits just because. And the judge even told them, the judge was like, "You're moving forward as if her rights have been severed already, and that's a problem. Like, you can't just like start
That's a
doing
good
things as
thing
if
that
she
the
doesn't
judge.
exist." Oh yeah, and I used that heavily on my petition when I filed my petition to the Supreme Court for due process, because that was I believe that The game is rigged, but they set it up in a way that if you know how to play, you'll win. And I believe that throughout the case and based on my knowledge that it was set up that if you understand what you're doing, you will win. And the judge specifically asked the case manager, he's like, this was January and the incident happened in June. And the judges all like, what have you done? What has the department done to allow mom to show that she can safely parent her child without,
Right.
dad involved? And he sat there and he said, nothing. Well, that's not fair. That just automatically makes you say that, right?
Yeah.
And one of the clauses in due process is fair. Is that fair? No, that wasn't fair. You can try any way that you can to say I broke a safety plan or, I broke a restraining order. The restraining order that I had expired weeks before my kids had any contact with him. You can create any type of narrative that you want, but at the end of the day, you managed to use a whole new psychological evaluation to say that I was crazy, to say that I couldn't be alone with my children until I was medicated for at least 6 months.
That's
I've
ridiculous.
I've not been on medication since I started the case. I will say that when I first went to the behavioral health center for that week and a half, they did try different type of medications with me. When I got out, I was like on, I could say half a dozen different type of medications they were trying for. After the first 90 days, I said, no, I'm not doing this. I
Don't
will
do
go
it.
through whatever I need to go through without, any type of psychotropic drugs. I'm not going to do it. I need to be able to control myself
Yeah.
without having some other substance, because whether it's weed or alcohol, psychotropic drug is still a substance without some other substance controlling me. So
Well,
I
here's
went
the problem with that. It's actually a whole lot worse than you think. So with psych medications, okay, for example, if the doctor gives you psych medication for schizophrenia and you don't have schizophrenia, something with the chemical reactions will cause you to actually have it or
with it.
worse.
Hmm.
And I've been told this by several doctors. Because the first time I thought maybe I heard it wrong, but no, apparently if you take a psych med that you don't technically need, then it will cause you to have some type of something. And a lot of doctors don't even really know for sure. They'll just start throwing all kinds of medications at you and hoping
Yeah.
one of them works.
Yeah, and you can't even determine whether it works until it's been in your system for at least 90 to 180
Yes.
days. On top of that, I will say I lost a lot of memory because from August of 2000 or October of 2016 up until 2019 when I got out of the ward, I was on and off medications, Zoloft, all different types of medications. So once I finally got clean, got my body right, got my mental health right, got everything in alignment, it's like foggy. A lot of the things are so foggy because I was on so many different kind of medications that I don't really remember everything. So it just
Isn't
made
that crazy
this
that they would
messy.
rather have you in that state than just let you smoke a
And
little
then
bit of
and
weed
then say
and be
that you
okay?
can't and then say that you can't take care of your child because
Yeah.
you're under medication now.
Yep.
What? That's what I wanted because that's what I knew that they were going to try to do. They were going to try to say, now that she's on medication, the medication that she's on doesn't allow her to safely parent her child. And I was not having that
Yeah.
at all whatsoever. So they got money out of me. They got urinalysis three times a week out of me. They get paid for every time I go do that.
And these
Um,
doctors, they were all their doctors, or were you able to go to your own? Because I keep hearing that they won't accept your own doctor.
So by the time I found a evaluator that could do it, it was already too late. The trial was already over. But I did two through theirs, and the third one that I did, I was like within. I did the third one in November, or I did the second one of theirs in November, and then I did my third one with them in April of the next year. They had the department psych evals already. They went through it, went through all the information that I gave them. So they had everything that they needed and more. And they're like, there's nothing wrong with her. she's got some stress, she's got some stuff going on in her life, but there's really nothing that's going to say that she can't take care of herself. If anything, she's actually stronger than you guys are making her seem.
I was gonna say, like,
yeah,
with
yeah.
everything that you had on your plate, like, you seem very,
I
very
finished
strong.
college. I finished my bachelor's degree last October at GCU. So
That's
I've got it together. I still have my job, so I was laid off at one point, but they hired us back, and I've been at my job for 10 years now. So it's not like I didn't have employment. I've been living in my apartment for 5 years. Like, everything is just all aligned. And yeah, I'm not fit to care for my children. I have a job. Placement doesn't have a job, but nobody asks them how they pay rent or take care of bills, So, I can make things really messy for the department, or I can just mind my business and get my kids back and go back behind my white picket fence and make cupcakes all day, like,
That's what
or I
ends up
can come out
happening.
and burn their city down. Like, I can come out and tear up DCS, and we can do that, or they could just give my kids and I can mind my business. But needless to say, I think this is a path that I'm on now, destroying them and telling the truth. They're not just doing this to some families, they're doing this to all families. And thankfully, the community group that I've been working with for the past 6-7 months, they've been able to mitigate a lot of the issues that the department is creating on families. They've been able to return a lot of kids back to their families and kind of stop the process of them escalating to terminate and to even removing kids and getting them back home as quickly as possible. I pray that all of my good work, is in the favor in the universe, and everything comes back to me and my kids, because this is bigger than my kids. It's a fight for all of our kids, with sex trafficking.
Yes.
I met with an individual a couple weeks ago who was at a conference with me, and I've only met parents. I've never met anyone who's actually involved in the system. And this girl was actually involved in the system. Her little sister, while in DCS's care, was trafficked 3 times. 3 times. Her little sister, and this is a story that you hear on Lifetime. This isn't never anything that I'd actually sit next to a lived experience panel and hear someone talk about how their little sister was sex trafficked while in DCS custody. Are you kidding me?
I've been through a lot. Like, I mean, a lot. Like, and the way that I deal with it is I always tell myself, like, okay, how could this be worse? And a lot of times it's kind of hard, but every single time I think, okay, I could be sex trafficked. Like, that could be the worst. I've always wanted to get into helping that, like, even as a young kid. I don't know why. And, like, that is, like, the worst thing. And I've been kidnapped, held hostage, raped, but sex trafficked, like, that's a whole new level. And to happen in the care of the state, especially 3 times.
3 times.
That
And
is
got
so
pregnant.
not
And got pregnant. And got pregnant. By the way. Yeah,
my
she has, I think the little girl, she's probably about 14, 15 months old now. Yeah. So she gets trafficked and gets pregnant in the system from getting trafficked. And what do you think the department does? Takes her baby, tries to take her baby from her. Of course, it's an ongoing cycle. And that's their moneymaker. So thankfully, the sister was able to take care of her niece, and everything's pretty situated. But it still just paints a bigger picture of what's really going on and how they're going to continue to do this. They're not going to do it to my family. They're not going to do it to my kids, and I'm not going to stop until they come home. They might as well just give them to me, because it's going to be so much of a headache to really be soliciting from Congress and legislators to remove these individuals that are in here, because it is our governor that actually places the director in place when they come in. And I have every intention, that is my goal, for them to no longer be there. I mean, I will campaign for this individual as much as possible if that means that I'm going to be able to stop someone who is not helping the system.
Right.
And if you're going to be in there, you need to help or get out. Like, you're otherwise you're compliant to all the stuff that they're doing to our kids. So when everything comes out, you're going to be a part of it too.
And I've been really trying to, like, wrap my brain. Like, I find myself waking up from sleep, even just thinking, like, what can we do to fix this or make a change or whatever? Because voting it's not going to do it.
Working.
Protesting
is
not going to do it.
No.
And I keep coming up with this, and tell me if it sounds kind of stupid, but I think that when people hear our stories, you know, they automatically assume that we're just bad parents because, you know, the whole CPS.
That's what I thought. I'm not gonna lie. That's what I thought for
Exactly,
years. I'm like, oh, you've got a bad mom.
Exactly.
And here's the problem. And then they'll filter in those stories, which we know. We know that there are children out there that need to be protected. That is a
I
downright
was one of them,
absolutely
and
correct.
they did not. They left me there, like all the other ones that need to be taken. But so here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we need to get like, and I know this is going to be like really uncomfortable, but we need to get like videos of the kids and telling their experiences of what they're going through. And we need to take this.
That's the heart chakra to grab.
Yes.
Everybody loves crying kids.
Yes. And if we can show a video, and like I used to take editing classes, like I'm sure I could put something together of like the most horrific, you know, stories and take it to, I don't even know, but whoever we need to take it to, and then maybe even the media at the same time.
Yeah.
So we make them look and see what you guys are doing. You don't want to believe us because we're crazy drug addicts. Like, oh, parents, listen to our kids of all ages. This is what is happening to our kids. Are you guys going to let this happen?
That's an amazing idea. That's a safe and amazing idea. That allows us the opportunity to have control of the narrative, full control over the narrative.
Yeah. And if anybody else out there has any ideas,
I like that idea.
Please let me know, because
I have a lot of people that I've been working with that can probably collect a lot of kids. I like that idea.
That would be awesome. I'm so down to do it. And
Yeah,
like
same.
soon, like quickly, because every day more and more kids are being taken away that shouldn't be.
I'm ready. I can probably have a couple of individuals ready next week after the holiday. That would be perfect.
Okay, that's wonderful.
I know I'll have my daughter that can speak on it, and then the one girl that I was working with, she has 3 boys. She has triplets, and then another kid, so she's got 4 boys that she finally just got back home. So that would be perfect. That would be perfect, and I can reach out and I can possibly see.
Thank you.
And then we can connect and figure out how we can do that, because that's perfect. That is a perfect idea. Good.
Okay. And anybody else out there watching, if you guys are interested, please let me know. Even if, you know, I know it's really uncomfortable because it's our kids. Like we can even like, you know, blur their face and make their voice different, whatever makes you comfortable.
Showing without having to show their face, you know, hands, pictures. Yeah, that's perfect. I love it. I love it.
Yes. Well, we're way out of time here, but I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much. I would love for you to come back and update us and let us know how everything went.
Yeah.
I think they need to give you your kids back. It doesn't make any sense how you can have 2 but not the other.
I can have 2 and not the other ones, and how I can say that I can be a voice for other parents who get their children back. I can be a voice for families to stay together. I can help make policy decisions and policy changes with the department, but I'm not good enough to parent my own kids, even though I'm learning all this stuff from you guys. But I mean, hey.
That is so wonderful. Well, definitely get a contact with me, because it sounds like we need to talk.
Yes.
Get this going here.
I love it.
Thank you so much. Sorry, everybody. I know this went a little bit longer. Totally worth it. I guess we'll wrap it up. Is there anything you want to say before we close? Is there any message you want to tell your kids if they ever see this? Or
I just want to tell you, just let you guys know that I love you, and this fight is for you. JD36739 hashtag. It's all over the internet. We've got videos of you, pictures. We've never stopped fighting for you. I will never stop fighting for you, and you guys will be home soon. I promise that.
You are such an awesome mom.
Thank you.
Like you. All right. Well, have a great holiday weekend, everyone. And I will see you guys next week. And anybody who is interested, let me know. Contact the number that's on the screen, I think. And they'll get the message to me. Jasmine, thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me. You guys have a safe and great holiday weekend.
You too. Thanks. Bye, everyone.